What's up, fam? I'm back and welcome to another edition of Undiluted TV. And today I just want to touch on, two topics that are, I think, important in the environment that we're in, the season that we're in, with all this election stuff going on, and talk about reparations and all of this kind of stuff, and Black economic empowerment. I just think that these two topics are important. So I just wanted to bring you a little information on both. And I want to start with this tweet that Symone Sanders did yesterday. And most of you know this, but for those of you who don't, Symone Sanders is supposed to be this black woman with supposed to be kind of powerful as far as the politics and the political arena and all of this is concerned. She's really not. She's just basically a puppet for white supremacy. That's what she is. She's a Democratic shield, and she's just basically one of those black faces of white supremacy that they sent out, to try to push the Democratic agenda on black folks. That's all she is. But prior to last year, she was a part of the Bernie Sanders campaign, and then she left the Bernie Sanders campaign and went over to the Joe Biden campaign. So yeah, she campaigns hard for Jim Crow Joe Biden and his 1994 crime bill. As a matter of fact, if you go back and you look at some of the stuff, I think it's on CNN, you'll see where she got into a little thing with the Victor guy. That's one of the news people on CNN, and they were talking about the 1994 crime bill, and she was trying to defend it and all of this kind of stuff. But anyway, she did a quote yesterday, and the quote was, "Don't quote Dr. King today if you were advocating for babies in cages and or in favor of this administration's haphazard foreign policy last year." We're not going to get into Trump's foreign policy, because whatever Trump did as far as his foreign policy is concerned, I guarantee you it's been done before by either other Republicans or by some Democrat. Just like, we saw that, just like Trump pulled that stunt to bomb Iran and all of that right before the right during the impeachment process. We pulled up this proof that Clinton had done the exact same thing back in 1998. That while he was in the process of being impeached, or they were in the process of deciding whether they were going to impeach him or whatever, he did the same thing, and I think he did an airstrike on Iraq. So, like we've already said, two wings of the same white supremacy bird. They all do the same thing. They're all in cahoots. So, we're not going to even talk about whatever Trump's administration did as far as foreign policy is concerned. But we are going to concentrate on this. Dr. King, don't quote Dr. King today if you were advocating for babies in cages. Dr. King was advocating for foundational Black Americans. He was advocating for his people. And yes, he was for integration. Yes, he was for immigration and all of those type of things before he had an awakening and realized that he had taken the wrong route, that he had gone down the wrong path. And he admitted that, he felt like he had led his people into a burning house. And he, after doing some rethinking, after doing some soul searching, he realized that social injustice and civil rights and all of that was not the issue, that the issue was economic. And that's the reason why right before he was killed, he changed his whole ideology, and he made it clear that he was about money, that he was about economics for foundational Black Americans, that he was about economics and about the redistribution of the wealth in the United States. And he was all for reparations. And it was, it was right after he made these statements and made it clear that, we're coming to get our check. This is about money now. We realize that this is about money now. Right after that, he was killed. He was murdered. And, just to jog your memory, or for those of you who have never heard him talk about that, here's a little clip. Hold on a minute. Let me get to it. Here we go.
Millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Now, this is what we are faced with, and this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check. Many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Now, this is what we are faced with, and this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Now, you heard it for yourself. We're coming to get our check. He talks about millions of dollars in subsidies that these folks, he's talking about white people, white farmers, were receiving not to farm. But these were the very same people who were receiving all of this money, all of these millions of dollars for the federal government. These were the same people that were telling black folks, telling the black man, okay, but you don't need to receive anything. You need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So he realized this was a speech that he did, and it was uncovered. It was not one of those speeches that, you know how white mainstream media just loves to put out all of these speeches that he did about I have a dream and about, you know, little black kids and white kids playing together and all of this kind of stuff. They love to put out those speeches. They love to quote him on stuff like that. But nobody had heard of this speech until not too long ago when it was uncovered. And in the description box will be a link to that whole speech. This was just a clip of it, but in the description box will be a link to that whole speech. And I linked it in another video. I think I linked it in the video where I was talking about reparations being something that has been talked about for 150 to 200 years. But he was talking about coming to get the check. He was talking about money. He had realized that it wasn't about social injustice. It wasn't about discrimination as far as black and white is concerned, or it was about money. It was about wealth. And it was about how this wealth is going to have to be redistributed and how black folks are owed. We're owed some money. So we're coming, he didn't say we're coming to get a check. He didn't say we're coming to get the check. He said we're coming to get our check. Meaning we're coming to get what's owed to us. That was Martin Luther King's sentiments right before he died. Right before he was murdered, those were his sentiments. Reparations. Where's our check? Where's our money? Where's our wealth? Since we built this country, since the wealth of this country was built off of our struggle, our suffering, our being dehumanized and you know, and all of that, where's our wealth? Where's our check? We're coming to get our check. So for Symone Sanders to be talking about who shouldn't be quoting Dr. King, okay, you have no business talking about Dr. King when you support Senator Joe Biden, and he's made it clear that he does not believe in reparations for slavery, for foundational black Americans. He made it clear back in the 70s when he made that statement about he'll be damned if he pays any debt, you know, for something that his fathers or his grandfathers did before him. And he still does not believe in reparations. Okay? So you're talking about don't quote Dr. King if you advocate for babies in cages. Okay, well that's what Biden advocated for. That's what the 1994 crime bill was all about. Lock them up and put them in cages. These thugs, these super predators. Hillary Clinton coined that phrase, these super predators. These black thugs, just lock them all up and throw away the key. Put them in cages. The father of mass incarceration. And this is the man that you support. This is the man whose campaign you are running. This is the man who you are pushing out there for black people to vote for. The man who authored the 1994 crime bill and is proud of it and has made it clear just last year. He's still proud of it. The man who is responsible for mass incarceration, who is responsible for the prison industrial complex, and still using black men, the backs of black men, the free labor of black men to build wealth. Because think of all the wealth that has been built through the prison industrial complex. But you advocating for a man who believes in putting black men in cages. But don't put these illegal babies in cages, these illegal aliens. Okay, you know what I'm saying? It's okay to put the black man who you say has committed a crime, who you say is a criminal. It's okay to put him in a cage and throw away the key. But these illegal aliens who come here illegally, who are committing a crime just by being here, oh, no. They shouldn't be locked up. They shouldn't be put in cages. They shouldn't be detained. But it's okay for black men to be locked in cages in places like Parchman Prison and other prisons all around the United States. It's okay for black babies to be born in cages. Black children born in America are born in cage. We are born in the cage of white supremacy. We are born into this white supremacy system, which is a prison for us. So black babies are born in cages. Black parents don't make a decision to bring their children here with the possibility that they might be detained, that they might be locked up because they're somewhere illegally, because they're committing a crime. No, we're born in these cages. We've been born in this cage called white supremacy in the United States for the last 400 plus years. But she has the nerve to talk about Dr. King. While her and members of the Black Caucus and all of these folks are running around with all of this immigration and all of this supporting these legal aliens and doing all of that, and they have all of these special protections against the law. Law enforcement can't even come in contact with these folks. They got so many special protections. But nobody is screaming about what's happening with black men in these prisons. Nobody is screaming about the murder rate as far as black men are concerned in the streets. Just killing black men and women and children and all of that with impunity, and nobody's saying anything about it. But it's always something about immigration. It's always something about the illegal aliens. Anytime they want to talk about something, they want to talk about the illegal aliens, but they don't want to talk about what's going on in the black community. They don't want to talk about how black people are being treated. And I read some of the comments, and the comments that I read, most of them, 95% of them, gave me hope that black people are finally waking up. And black people are finally realizing who these folks like Symone Sanders and Angela Rye and Roland Martin and Joy Reid and some others, who these folks really are. Tone and Yvette, who these folks really are. That they're just black puppets that are being sent out to convince black folks to continue with business as usual, to maintain the status quo, to keep, the dominant society and white supremacy in control. So if you even thinking about voting for Joe Biden, understand what you're voting for. Understand you're voting for this mass incarceration. You're voting for black men continuing to be used as slaves, because the the Act of Emancipation Proclamation says that legal slavery was over, except for in the case of if you're confined for committing a crime. So if you're imprisoned, then you go right back into slavery. So that's what mass incarceration is. It's slavery. And all of these private prisons with all of these private investors and all of that. Again, America gaining all of this wealth off of the backs of black slaves. Black men imprisoned in these prisons. So if you vote for Joe Biden, just know what you're voting for. Understand what you're voting for. Understand that you're voting for the author of a bill that promoted modern day slavery. But that tweet just kind of got next to me, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, based on the comments, you know, there's hope. There is hope that black folks are waking up. And we're finally realizing, you know, that we've been tricked, that we've been lied to, that we've been deceived. And we're finally starting to see these black puppets for what they really are. Just that, black puppets. Black tools that have been weaponized against us. Black folks being used as weapons against their own. And they're doing it willfully. They're doing it understanding exactly what they're doing. So for anybody that wants to go and find this tweet, this is something that she tweeted yesterday, please go and please comment. And please let her know nobody's listening to you. Nobody's listening to you. Nobody's concerned with what you're saying, because, you know, we now see what side you're on. We now see whose side you're on. And you're on the side of the system. You're on the side of this white supremacist system. So that's what I just wanted to bring that to you as far as her quote is concerned. And I wanted you to hear for yourself that Dr. King had realized the error of his ways, and he was doing some new thinking. He had a new vision. He had a new purpose. He had a new plan. Just like he said in this campaign, when we come to Washington this time, you know, the last time they went to Washington and they had that march on Washington, it was all about social justice, and it was all about equality, and it was about integration and all of that. Well, he was letting them know, no. In this campaign, when we come back to Washington this time, we coming to get our check. We coming to get what's owed to us. We coming to get what belongs to us. So I wanted you to hear that for yourself, so that you would know that when they start quoting all this other stuff from Dr. King before he died, he was on a whole another road. He had a whole nother mission. And that mission was reparations. So now I want to move on from that. And I want to move into the next story, which of course ties in because it's about politics. And it's also about more trick bags and more Trojan horses. You understand what I'm saying? And more things being done to trick black folk. And more pandering to get the black vote and all of that. And this is coming from Yahoo News. Bloomberg pledges $70 billion to bolster Black America in new plan. Now, it just said $70 billion to bolster Black America in new plan, right? Brittany Shepard, Yahoo News, January 19, 2020. And Michael Bloomberg is the mayor that endorsed and pushed stop and frisk back in the 80s. Then, you know, right before he decided that he was going to run for president, he went to this black mega church and decided that he was going to apologize for stop and frisk and tell folks he was sorry. And, you know, and in hindsight, it was a bad decision and all of that. But let's get back to what he got going on, and let's see what he's offering in this plan, right? Because of course we know he's pandering for the black vote. Why? Because the black vote is necessary. You can't get in the White House. If you're a Democrat, you can't get in the White House without the black vote. So he's pandering to the black vote. Okay, so let's see what he's offering. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg will announce on Sunday his presidential campaign's plan aimed at bolstering economic opportunity for Black Americans, promising to triple their income over the next decade, but stopping short of promising reparations. Right? Okay. So right here, we know that this plan does not mention reparations. We know that this plan is not going to offer us any form of reparations. Okay? We already know that. It's plainly letting us know that. Again, for those of you who do not understand, reparations simply means reparative action. It's something that you do to repair an injury, to repair damage that you caused. Okay? That's what reparations are, right? And reparations always come in the form of money. There is no real reparations if there's not money. When the United States wanted to repair the damage that it had done to the so-called Native American Indians, there was money involved. When the United States wanted to repair the damage that it felt like it had done to the slave owners because of the end of slavery, there was money involved. And the slave owners received reparations in the form of money. When the United States decided that it wanted to repair the damage that it felt like it had done to the Japanese during World War II, there was money involved. So there's always money involved in reparations. The United States even supported and helped out with reparations to the Jews because of something that happened in Nazi Germany. And in Europe, it didn't take place on the United States soil. Didn't have anything to do with us. We didn't do the damage. We didn't do the harm. But the United States helps pay that reparation. Money. Reparations always come in the form of money for everybody but foundational Black Americans. So understand that. Understand there is no real reparations without money. That's just like if you're accused of committing a crime and you cause somebody some kind of bodily harm or whatever the case may be, included in whatever penalty or punishment you get, there's going to be restitution. And that restitution usually comes in some monetary form. Because that restitution is meant to do what? That restitution is meant to help repair the damage that you caused that person. Okay? But in his plan, he falls short. Even though he's talking about bolstering the economic opportunities for Black Americans and promising to triple their income over the next decade, he still stops short of promising reparations, of mentioning any kind of reparative program that involves money given directly to foundational Black Americans. Okay? The announcement comes as the billionaire continues to face questions about the controversial stop and frisk police tactic he endorsed as mayor, and as he seeks to build support among African Americans, a key voting bloc in the Democratic primary. Now, I want you to listen very carefully to this. Bloomberg's Greenwood Initiative plan is named after the Greenwood District, otherwise known as Black Wall Street, a Tulsa neighborhood that was once considered one of the most economically prosperous Black communities in the United States. The neighborhood was the center of a deadly two-day attack by a white mob during the 1920s. 99 years later, Bloomberg will announce his plan in the same district. Now, I hope you caught that. He has named his plan the Greenwood Initiative. So he has named it after Black Wall Street. Do you get the psychology right there? Do you get how he's playing chess and how that's a chess move? He's going to name his plan that's supposed to be meant to do all of this economic helping the Black community. He's going to name that plan after one of the most prosperous Black communities in the United States. One of. Now, there were others, but Black Wall Street is one of the most prosperous, and it is the one that has been talked about the most in history. So he's going to name his plan after something that has historical value to the foundation of Black America. He's going to name his plan after something that we are emotionally and traditionally and historically attached to. That's a chess move. Why? Because just naming the plan after Black Wall Street, he thinks is going to automatically get him that support. It's going to automatically get him that Black support. Why? Because he named his plan after Black Wall Street. And that's supposed to symbolize something. That's supposed to mean something. But what we have to find out is we got to move the emotion and all of that out of it. And we got to find out, okay, well, is that just a symbolic gesture? Because you're naming your plan after, Black Wall Street, and Black Wall Street means so much to us historically and economically and all of that. Are you doing that as just a gesture, a symbolic gesture, or does it really have some substance? And then on top of that, he's going to go to this same district that used to be Black Wall Street and announce his plan. So he's really, really thinking. And he's really, really playing chess, because that's a chess move. So we've got what we've got to do is, like I said, we've got to separate ourselves from the emotion and the historical value and everything that we feel about Black Wall Street and all of that. We've got to separate ourselves from that. And we've got to look at this and see, okay, is this just a Trojan horse? Is this just an empty gesture? Are you just using this to try to work on our psychology? But what are you really offering? So let's read on and find out what he's really offering. For hundreds of years, America systematically stole Black lives, Black freedom, and Black labor, Bloomberg will say, according to his prepared remarks. So he's already even released some of what his speech is going to be. And the impact of that theft over a period of centuries has meant an enormous loss of wealth for individuals and families across generations. Let's stop right there. Now, he starts this by talking about what America systematically stole from Black folks: their lives, their freedom, and their labor. Right? Which is exactly true. He's telling the truth. So all of that is true, and that just sounds wonderful. It sounds wonderful. Why? Because you're telling the truth. My thing is, if you know this and you're willing to say it, then what's your problem with reparations? But that's another discussion. But then he kind of switches it up a little bit in the next remark. And the impact of that theft over a period of centuries has meant an enormous loss of wealth for individuals and families. Doesn't say for Black individuals and Black families. It just says for individuals and families. What individuals and what families? Across generations. Okay? So that's another thing. They start off talking about black. You understand what I'm saying? And why? That's to get you to thinking that this is going to be all about black people. That's to get you to believing that this is black. That's another psychological move. That's another chess move. Okay, well, if we say black here, and we started off talking about black this and black that and black this and black that, well, then now they've got it in their brain that this is about black, that this is all about black. So if we switch it up a little bit down the road, they won't catch it. Because now in their thinking, this is all about black. So see, you got to understand the psychology behind all of this stuff. You got to understand that these people are playing chess. And we gotta play catch up, because while they've been playing chess for years, we just learning how to play checkers. So we gotta catch up, and we gotta catch up quick. But you start out talking about all of this was stolen from black folks, their lives, their freedom, and their labor. But when you get to talking about the wealth, all of a sudden you're not talking about black anymore. Now you're just talking about individuals and families. Right? For hundreds of years, America systematically stole black lives, black freedom, and black labor, Bloomberg will say, according to his prepared remarks. And the impact of that theft over a period of centuries has meant an enormous loss of wealth for individuals and families across generations. A kind of compound interest in reverse. Well, it's past time to say enough and to damn well do something about it. Like I said, it all sounds good until you realize that where you need the word black, it's not there. When you're talking about the wealth, all of a sudden, the word black is missing. Now, it's okay to use the word black when you're talking about black lives, black freedom, and black labor. But when you get to talking about wealth and the wealth that has been stolen, because he says, and the impact of that theft, the theft of black lives, black freedom, and black labor has meant an enormous loss of wealth. Okay, it was no loss of wealth. The wealth was stolen. Just like the lives were stolen, just like the freedom was stolen, and just like the labor was stolen, the wealth was stolen. But you notice he switched up the word then. And it's not about stolen anymore. Now it's about loss. There's a difference between something being lost and something being stolen. The wealth was stolen. Okay? So you got to watch these words. If it's one thing that I've learned from listening to our teacher, Dr. Claude Anderson, from listening to folks like Jason Black and the Black Authority, Tariq, Professor Black Truth, Booker T. Coleman, Professor Kamade, and others. The one thing I've learned is to pay attention to words, to pay attention to the words that these folks use, especially these politicians, to pay attention to the words that they use. Because it's all in the words. Okay? So in the beginning of the comments, he's talking about what was stolen. But by the time he gets to wealth, he's talking about what was lost. At the beginning of the comment is black this, black that, black that. But by the time he gets to talking about the wealth, then the black all of a sudden isn't there. And now he's just talking about individuals and families. Okay? New York social activist and black leader Jeffrey Canada will be present in the office and is expected to endorse Bloomberg later Sunday evening. So you already got somebody black that's talking about endorsing it. Already somebody black. This so-called black leader who's talking about endorsing this mess. When already, just in his comments, he ain't even started talking about the plan yet. Already in the comments, We see the trickery and you know, and the trick words and all of this kind of stuff. But you already got somebody black that's expected to endorse this. Okay? Bloomberg, one of the richest men in the world with a media empire and $50 billion estimated net worth, attributed some of his gains to the privilege that comes with being a white man in America. He attributes some of his gains. Some of his gains. No, honey, it's all of your gains. Everything that you have, everything that you have gained comes from you being privileged because you are a white man in America. Okay? Then it goes on to tell some story about, you know, when his parents were trying to buy a house and all that. I'm not interested in that. It'll be linked in the description box and y'all can read that part of it if you want to. But I want to get to the plan. Now let's get to the plan. Bloomberg's plan, according to details released by his team. You understand? So this is his team releasing details of his plan. It's not like it was leaked. And it's not like, you know, somebody else is releasing this, so we don't know whether this is really what his plan is or what. This is his team has released these details of his plan. This Greenwood Initiative, right? Bloomberg's plan, according to details released by his team, focuses on investing in black business, there go the word again, black business and home ownership, which includes, so that's part of it, but it also includes a $70 billion investment in the country's 100 most disadvantaged neighborhoods. Beep, stop right there. What is a disadvantaged neighborhood? Okay? Now again, there we go again. You had the black up there, investing in black business and home ownership, right? But when you get to what this $70 billion is going to be invested in, now all of a sudden, the word black mysteriously disappears again and is replaced by disadvantaged neighborhoods. Not black neighborhoods, not black communities, disadvantaged neighborhoods, right? Okay, again, that's psychology. If we started off talking black, as they read, they'll keep thinking that it's about black, even if we change up the wording. If we started out talking about black, even if we change up the wording a little bit, they'll still think we're talking about black. You get that? Okay. So what's a disadvantaged neighborhood? Exactly what does that mean? Exactly what does it mean for a neighborhood to be disadvantaged compared to an advantaged neighborhood? So what's the difference? There's another one of those broad and ambiguous terms. Another one of those terms that's too wide, that's too inclusive, that's not detailed or specific enough. But let's keep reading. The money will be controlled by a new White House office, the Neighborhood Equity and Opportunity Office, which will coordinate across federal agencies. Okay? So this money is going to be controlled, regulated, and all of that by the federal government. So again, the folks who need the money, the folks who are supposedly disadvantaged, won't have any control. It'll still be controlled by the federal government. It'll still be controlled by the dominant society. So the dominant society will still have the right to pick and choose who gets access to this money, who gets access to this investment money in these disadvantaged neighborhoods. Okay? The plan provided did not explicitly state the criteria to determine a level of disadvantage beyond being place-based and evidence-based. So even in the article, even this person realizes, okay, exactly what does disadvantage mean? Exactly what is the specific criteria that determines whether or not this neighborhood is disadvantaged. So therefore, it meets the criteria to be a part of this $70 billion investment. The only criteria that they have so far is place-based and evidence-based, which makes it clear that it's not race-based. You get? There are white folks that live in disadvantaged neighborhoods. There are Hispanics that live in disadvantaged neighborhoods. There are illegal aliens that live in disadvantaged neighborhoods. There are a whole lot of people that live in disadvantaged neighborhoods. But there's no specific criteria that's stating what determines the level of disadvantage that makes this program available to your neighborhood, other than place-based and evidence-based. So you have to live in a specific place, and you have to be able to provide some evidence, I guess, that you're disadvantaged. Again, there are white folks that live beyond the poverty level. There are Hispanics who live beyond the poverty level. There are illegal aliens who live beyond the poverty level. They're not as low as us. They're not at the bottom like we are, but there are a few of them. So do you see how just using that word disadvantaged neighborhoods starts opening it up to other people other than us? But if you just read and don't pay attention, if you just read and don't pay attention to those trick words, if you just read and just assume because you see the word black here or there that this whole plan is about black folks, then that's what you'll be tricked into believing. Let's keep reading. In his proposal, mortgage and loan guarantors will be forced to update their credit scoring requirements, which the plan maintains is rigged against African Americans. Okay, there goes the word again, African Americans, to make you think, okay, we're talking about black folks. This is about black folks. This is something for black folks. This is something for black Americans, right? Under the initiative, under the plan, a new Housing Fairness Commission would be established with a $10 billion fund to work with localities and municipalities to test and potentially reserve housing laws that might discriminate. Okay, first of all, we got a commission. Here comes another commission. And we've all found that these government commissions ain't worth 5 cents. So here comes another commission. And this commission is going to be given a $10 billion fund to test. What are you testing? What are you testing? Whether discrimination exists in the mortgage and the loan arena. When we already know that redlining is out there, when we already know that black folks are discriminated against when they go to try to get a loan, or when they try to get a capital, or when they go to try to get a home loan or whatever. We already know that they're discriminated against. Some of them are simply just flat out denied. Others are charged much, much higher interest rates, all of that kind of stuff. So we already know that. So what are you going to test? And then it says this $10 billion fund is to work with localities and municipalities to test and potentially reserve housing laws. So this is some potential stuff. So this ain't even something that's necessarily guaranteed, right? But this is the catchphrase. This is it right here. Under the initiative, a new Housing Fairness Commission would be established with a $10 billion fund to work with localities and municipalities to test and potentially reserve housing laws that might discriminate against buyers or renters of color. So there we go. Now we're talking about people of color. Now, when you first started talking about this, you were talking about this plan maintains that mortgage and loan guarantors will be forced to update their credit scoring requirements that were rigged against African Americans. That was at the beginning of it. But then by the time you get down here to the end of it, you have switched from being about African Americans to being about buyers or renters of color. People of color. So when you say people of color, now you have opened the door to all these other groups. And we know what happens when the door of anything is open to other groups. Once they are included, we are pretty much automatically excluded. Now, a black person here, a black person there, a black person over there, maybe one black person behind you might benefit a little bit. But as a whole, once other groups are included in something, as a whole, we get excluded. And if we get anything at all, it's scraps left on the table. But that buyers or renters of color, right there, opens the door for other groups. So how is this supposed to be an initiative that's supposed to help black folks economically? How is this supposed to be specifically geared towards black Americans? When you're talking about disadvantaged neighborhoods and you're talking about people of color, buyers and renters of color. Okay, well, buyers and renters are people. So you're talking about people of color. Okay, then it goes on and he gets to talking about like what we were talking about, the whole stop and frisk thing, and how in January of last year, January of 2019, he was still defending stop and frisk, and he was still talking about how stop and frisk, had lowered the crime rate in New York City and all of this kind of stuff. But then by November of last year, he had changed up his stance when he knew he was thinking about running for president. He changed up his whole stance and went to this black mega church in Brooklyn and apologized and admitted that he had been wrong and that he was sorry and all of that. Okay? But police brutality is mentioned twice in his Greenwood Initiative. And this initiative requires implicit bias training for the law enforcement agency. So again, trying to minimize it and take it from being a race issue and from it being about racism and about white supremacy to it's just about training. These police officers are just not getting the proper amount of training. They're just not being trained properly. It has nothing to do with the fact that the federal government has put out a report that proves that whites, how widespread it is that white supremacy has infiltrated law enforcement. So it has nothing to do with that. It's about training. Then it goes on to say specific forms of reparations did not appear in the plan. Okay, well, it had already stated that in the very beginning of the article that nothing was mentioned. He stopped short of saying anything about reparations. So specific forms of reparation did not appear in the plan. The reparations issue is often met by skittish behavior from presidential candidates, and none of the four frontrunners, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, address reparations directly in their policies, focused on Black Americans. all have conceded that the idea be studied further. So it just goes to show that they're all in support of that HR 40 mess, which has been broken down and put back together and broken down again. And no matter how you twist it and turn it around, it's empty. It's nothing. You know, all you got is people talking about a commission to study slavery and to study the effects of slavery and to study the effects of discrimination and redlining and Jim Crow and all of that. And then after we study it, and it doesn't give you any specific amount of time or how long, you know, they have to study it. Then after we study it, then, you know, once we study it and decide that, yeah, you know, it's true, then after we study it, we're going to give these recommendations as far as reparations is concerned. Okay, well, no specific amount of time or how long it's going to take for you to come up with the recommendations. Then when you come up with the recommendations, there's no specific amount of time of how long it's going to take before you to start implementing some of these recommendations. See, it's just empty. It's just full of nothing. But they all support studying. You know, we did the video where we talked about Tom Steyer. You know, and Tom Steyer is a presidential candidate. And he's talking about, you know, how we need to study history and we need a retelling of the history and all of that. You know, yes, we need reparations, but before we can get into reparations and get into talking about reparations and get into talking about how much and how we're going to do this and how we're going to do that, we just need to have a whole retelling of the history of slavery in the United States. Because, you know, yes, even though black folks know about it, even though African Americans know about it, you know, the majority of other people don't really know anything about it. Come on, y'all. A senior Bloomberg advisor told Yahoo News that the former mayor's thinking on reparations is in line with his rivals in support of continued study. So that's his stance on reparations. Continued study. Let's continue to study it. Let's continue to use these commissions that cost the taxpayers all of these millions of dollars. Let's continue to use them as a classroom to study slavery and to study Jim Crow and to study, you know, the effects and the results of discrimination and to study if, you know, African Americans or descendants of American slaves are still being affected by all of this discrimination and everything that happened from slavery on up to now. Let's just continue to sit in the classroom and let's continue to study it. We ain't gonna never take the test, and we ain't gonna never pass the test, and we ain't gonna never get the grades passed out. We're just gonna continue to study it. That's how Michael Bloomberg feels about reparations. He agrees. He's in line with his rivals, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Tom Steyer, and all the rest of them. Yeah, let's just keep studying it. We're not going to do anything about it. We're not going to make any commitments as far as reparations is concerned. We're just going to continue to study it. And that's the end of that article. And of course, it'll be linked in the description box, and you can go back and read the whole entire article, and you can see for yourself. But as far as his initiative, his Greenwood Initiative, that's just supposed to strike a chord in your heart because it's named after the Black Wall Street, as far as that concerned, when you really pull it apart and you really read it and really look at it, it's not for us. It's for everybody. It's for folks that live in disadvantaged neighborhoods and buyers and renters of color. And it does not specifically define what a disadvantaged neighborhood is. So that's too broad. So because it's so broad, it can include anybody. And again, like I said, we know once everybody else is included, it pretty much pushes us out the door. And then you got renters and buyers of color. Okay, well then, like I said, Asians are people of color. Hispanics are people of color. Immigrants are people of color. Middle Easterners are people of color. Whole lot of people of color that live in the United States. Whole lot of non-white folks, because anybody that's non-white is considered a person of color. So when you say anything about people of color, then you're including everybody. So there's nothing in this plan that has anything to do with anything being specifically given to foundational Black Americans. Nothing in it. Nothing whatsoever. So this plan is not exclusive to us. It's not specifically for us. And because it includes other groups, we get pushed out. Or at least we get pushed to the very back. And because there are going to be all of these government agencies and all of these, new White House offices and all of that set up to control and regulate and all of that, then of course you have these people in the dominant society that still get to pick and choose who actually becomes a part of these programs. How many Black folks do you think they're going to choose? How many Black businesses do you think that they're going to choose? How many predominantly or all Black neighborhoods do you think they're going to choose? And because it's something that a president has set up, okay, when his term of office is over, if he's not reelected, or if God forbid he's impeached, or he gets killed, or whatever the case may be, in the middle of his term or whatever, the new president coming in can always get rid of all of this. Can always get rid of every bit of this. How many years would it take for him to even start implementing this program? And then he's only talking about $70 billion. At least Marianne Williams was talking about starting at $100 billion. $70 billion is nowhere near enough. But then this is not meant to be a tangible for us. This is not meant to be a form of reparation for us. Because just like everybody else, he feels like all you need to do as far as reparations is concerned is just keep studying it. So I just wanted to bring you this and wanted to break down what information we do have as far as the plan is concerned. And like I said, the article makes it clear that these details were released by his team. These plan details were released by his team. So it's not like this is something that was leaked. It's not like it's something that somebody else says, okay, well, here's Bloomberg's plan. You understand? No, this is coming from his team. So he meant for this to be released. Just like he meant, for parts of his remarks and his speech and all of that to be released. So again, it's just another empty gesture. It's just another bunch of pretty words. You know what I'm saying? And they started out talking about Black, and they started out talking about African American and all of that to get your mind to thinking that this is something that's about Black. It's all a part of the psychology to get you to thinking that this is about Black people, that this is something that's meant to help the Black community. And once you get to thinking that, they're hoping that you won't notice the switch up in words. They're hoping that you won't notice the play on words. They're hoping that you won't notice the 2 or 3 trick words that are added in there that will change everything. Because once you take out Black and you put in disadvantaged neighborhoods, you change up the whole program. Once you take out Black buyers or renters and you put in buyers or renters of color, people of color, you change the whole plan. And it's no longer about Black folks. Just like the Civil Rights Act of 1964, just like the Voting Rights Act, just like affirmative action, just like all of that stuff that was supposed to be meant specifically, exclusively for Black folks. Because they stuck those words in there: minority, diversity, marginalized groups, because they stuck those kinds of words in there. It stopped being about us and started being about all of these other groups. And now you got all of these other groups in there just getting all kind of special privileges and all kind of special protections and all kind of special rights and all of that under bills and laws that were supposed to be specifically for us. But because we didn't pay attention to those words, those broad and ambiguous words that Dr. Claude Anderson keeps warning us about, because we didn't pay attention to that, we let our stuff be left wide open for everybody else. And we've been pushed to the back. We keep getting pushed to the back of the line. And they just keep passing it out, just keep passing it out, just keep handing it out to everybody else. And every time it looks like we're getting to the front of the line, somebody will push us back into the back of the line again. So we have never gotten any of what was supposed to be just for us. And those same type of words, that same type of language is in this so-called economic plan for Black America from Michael Bloomberg. He hasn't stopped being the same man that went along with stop and frisk, knowing that stop and frisk would racially profile Black folks. He hasn't stopped being that man. He's still that man. He's still that same politician. But now he knows he needs the Black vote to get him in that White House, to get him where he needs to be, where he wants to be. And he knows that we're screaming for tangibles. He knows we're demanding tangibles. So he put this fake mess out here thinking that this would fool us. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. It's another Trojan horse. And if it's not a Trojan horse, it's at least an empty horse, because it looks kind of good on the outside, but once you look at it from the inside out and get to digging around in there and all of that, no, this ain't it. This ain't it. So I just wanted to bring you this. I just wanted to break it down, and I just wanted to point out some of these specific words and the trick and the psychology behind it, and how he thinks he's really playing chess and thinks we're still playing checkers. We're still trying to catch up. But thankfully, the new Black media is catching us up real quick. So some of us are learning how to play chess, and some of us are learning how to watch for those chess moves. And this is on his part, he thinks it's a chess move. So go to the article, read the article for yourself. If you want to, do a little research, look up other articles, about this plan and see if there's anything more specific about the plan or whatever. But this is coming from Yahoo News, and this is what his team released. So please like this video. Make sure y'all go to Symone Sanders, that tweet she did yesterday about Dr. King, and make sure you put your comment on that, because she needs to understand we ain't falling for it. We're not falling for we're not falling for the okie doke. We're not falling for the tricks. So please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please hit that bell notification. If you want to be notified when we upload new videos, go to the description box, and this article plus the audio of the whole speech Dr. King did about reparations, all of that will be linked in the description box. And of course, the PayPal for the channel will be linked in the description box if you decide that you want to donate or whatever. But that's what I wanted to bring y'all. Y'all have a good one, and I'll see you soon. Bye.